226. Hi, my name's Hagen. That's Brett. Brought to you guys by Chinook Seedery. Make sure you use the code the Skippers to over 10% discount there. Brett, how you doing? I know it's been a little bit of time here. We're starting to probably get on a little bit more of a better schedule here now. Get things going for a lot better. But how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I wish the Yankees were doing more. But it's been good. It's been super busy, and that's main reason why we've been kind of off schedule. I know we promised the people that would be better. I think starting next week we could really start that. And obviously I say that and then we're gonna head right into the holiday season where it's like, oh man, we're gonna miss an episode. But for those who do listen to us, the oh so few many, notice how I put it's oh so few many. But we miss talking ball, and winter meetings is the best way for us to hop on. And we got a bunch of blogs coming out this week about free agency and who we think we should sign. But Hagen, how are you doing? Like your Mets, we could start there. Like I think that's not the biggest signing, but your Mets, what's going on? You got a few things going on this week.
Yeah, it was a busy day. I was talking about earlier in the Skippers group chat, just that it was a pretty bad day for the Mets, to be honest with you. Like I'm not like personally like too upset over it right now at this moment in time. I'm still trying to collect my thoughts on things before I get upset on anything. I like to do that a little bit before I just make assumptions about David Stearns or all these things that happen. But yeah, obviously it was kind of a rough day with them. Obviously, with Edwin Diaz, for all you don't know, he signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He went to the evil Dodgers. He signed with a 3-year, $69 million deal, deferring $4.5 million for all three of those years, so $13.5 million deferred total. So I thought this was crazy in my mind when this first dropped and I saw when Diaz was going to the Dodgers. We didn't have the contract right away there, and I thought immediately the Dodgers gave him 5 years and the Mets weren't going to give him that. So I assumed it was 5 years. But then I was really shocked to see that it was $69 million over 3 years, and a little at the beginning I didn't really like that from David Stearns. I thought that was kind of stupid to not give him what he wanted there, especially when the Mets offer was at 3 years, $66 million. But then it gets reported back that Edwin Diaz didn't give the Mets a chance to match the Dodgers offer at all. So it just kind of seemed like to me that Edwin Diaz just wanted to be a Dodger, and there's nothing wrong with that too. You're a free agent. You have the ability to sign wherever you want, especially too, who doesn't want to go play for the Dodgers right now? I mean, they needed a closer, and they won back-to-back World Series, and they're going to do everything they can to improve the roster. So I can't say I blame Edwin Diaz there.
Yeah, I did read a little bit more into this because I was like, it would be on one hand, like the Mets had the money to pay Diaz, like clearly. I think, and nothing told me that he was definitely gone. This wasn't a free agent that we went into this like the Mets don't have a shot of getting him back. Like there's been clear examples of free agents where it's like, he's gone. He's gone after like once his time is up, with whatever team drafted him or brought him up or traded for him, whatever. Diaz, I totally thought was going to be back in New York. Honestly, I thought he was so going back to New York that when Devin Williams signed, it didn't even cross my mind that he's out now because of Devin Williams getting signed and them not really like looping him in. And like I read that right earlier today about them not like keeping him in the loop on that. But like, I don't know. The one takeaway I have from this, the deferment again, BS. I like the deferments are kind of getting ridiculous. I like at dinner tonight, I was actually going over Ohtani's contract with the deferment payment. And I didn't realize, like, dude, Ohtani's getting $2 million a year for 10 years. His contract's worth $700 million. The next 10 years after that, he gets $68 million a year for the next 10 years. Like, how is that even? How are the Dodgers going to compete with that type of contract? Maybe, like, you know what I mean? And like, they're deferring more. So obviously they got, thoughts and plans, but I don't know. Do you like this for baseball, the whole deferment thing, before we start rattling it off all these signs and trades that we've had the last couple of days?
I normally historically have been a big deferment guy. I think there should be a limit on it. I don't know how exactly I would want that to be done, but I think there's for sure going to be something that's going to happen in the next CBA, and I think that's kind of why you're seeing a lot of these deals so far have had the deferments in them, because teams are just trying to get the deferments done now because they know they're probably not going to be able to do that as much anymore after the next CBA negotiations. So I like the deferment, but I think like in a Diaz case like this where you're deferring $13.5 million, I'm perfect with that. I think when you're deferring $680 million with Shohei Ohtani, like just not every team can do that. So like that, I can see that aspect of it.
Yeah, It's kind of big, but obviously for the Mets, big news. And personally, by the way, about Devin Williams, we'll talk about that real quick. Yes, was he not fantastic with the Yankees last year? The answer is yes. Was he still an effective reliever? Absolutely. And like this guy can get you saves, he can get you holds. He has wipeout stuff when he's on. And this year, even at the end of the year, there was that like little slump, and then he got it back for like a few weeks. Then it kind of like fizzled out. But like I think Devin Williams in a less stressful environment, which I think the Mets are, even though it's still New York, it's the Mets versus the Yankees. I think it's way more stressful going to the Bronx instead of Citi Field right now in Queens. And I think Devin Williams is going to be excellent for the Mets. I really do. I think this is a huge signing for you. I think this is a huge hole for the Yankees that they did not get this guy back. I know people are going to be like, what are you talking about? You watched him last year, but it's like, he's nasty.
Yeah, I think it's a great take on it too. Obviously, I think you see Mets fans and Yankees fans when it first happened were like both saying this guy sucks and he's not that good anymore. Why does he get $50 million? But I'm totally with you there. I think Devin Williams just had a very unlucky year. Obviously, yes, the whiff went down a little bit. I don't want to change it, but it went down about like 11%, I believe, which is he still had elite whiff numbers though. Like Devin Williams had everything great under the hood. He's gonna have some bad luck, some bad infield defense behind him. I know, and it's just a reliever sample size too. Like if you just look at ERA for relievers, it's not the best predicament going forward on how good a guy's going to be. The best predictor. Sorry, excuse me there. And like you can just see that too. Like the Mets know that there's a reason why he got $50 million. It's not because he had a 4.5 ERA last year. It's because the Mets know that he's still an elite closer and could be a top 5 in baseball still.
Well said. Let's talk about probably the second or third biggest fish of this entire free agency. I don't know how you rank Kyle Schwarber, but Schwarber's going back to Philly. What are your thoughts on that as a Met fan? I want to hear your take first.
I really kind of wanted the Mets to get Schwarber there. It felt like to me they were going to get either one of Alonso and Schwarber, but this obviously puts more stress on the Alonso thing. But I would have loved Kyle Schwarber on this team. Obviously, MVP runner-up last year was phenomenal for the Phillies, but it felt like he was always going to go back to Philly. I know it got a little interesting there at the end, but ultimately, like he had a lot of teams are throwing money at him too. The Pirates made some good offers on him, surprisingly. And the Reds threw some good offers on him. The Orioles matched the same offer the Phillies did. So he had a big market on him there, and it seemed like he really just wanted to go back to Philly, and he really wants to. He believes he can win a championship with that team because we know that he wants to compete at this point in his career. And obviously, he was a great clubhouse guy with Philly. Seemed like he really wanted to be there. So I thought it was a great deal for the Phillies. Obviously, it sucks that when you're in on a guy and then he goes to your division rival, it kind of sucks in that sense. But I think it's a great get for Philly, and I'm happy for him that he got his payday.
Yeah. I kind of disagree with you though. I did not think he was going back to Philly. I really did. I thought Philly was dealing with Philly has a lot of issues right now, and I'm using issues as a lack of a better term, but like Wheeler, we don't know his status. Like this dude is dealing with a blood clot, and like that is one of the scariest things I think out there. Obviously, medically, we don't know where he's going to be. Obviously, when he's on the field and healthy, I have no questions about Zach Wheeler. He's one of the best playoff pitchers we've ever seen. Is he going to be around? Ranger Suarez, he's being brought up every day about where is he going to land. That's another starter for them. Andrew Painter, he's like the big prospect arm that everyone's been relying on to be the back of the end rotation. But it's like you might be down two members of your starting rotation for next year. And we know Wheeler is going to ease his way back. We know Ranger Suarez might be on a new team as soon as we're recording this. We have no idea what's going on. And then there's also the JT Realmuto side to this. Like the Phillies, catching wise, they kind of need to either sign Realmuto or they need to address the catcher immediately. And I thought they were going to put some money into that or maybe make a trade for someone who's like a prospect who's ready to make the jump to the MLB if they missed out on Realmuto. But I'm surprised at this because, we could talk about this a lot, like Alonso, but Alonso's younger than Schwarber. He's not feeling he can actually play a position. Schwarber, with like the Dodgers didn't even go talk to him because he's a DH. He's not a position player, and I don't get the money. It's a lot of money, Hagen, for a 32-year-old. Like I think you're aware of that, but like And I will say this, Just Baseball put out this stat earlier, and I thought it was really cool on Schwarber. He has the third most home runs between ages 29 to 32 with 187. He's only behind Sammy Cheating Sosa with 243, and then Aaron Judge, who's a god amongst men playing baseball. So, and Aaron Judge is 196 in that time. Schwarber has 187. So he's like 8 or 9 home runs short of Aaron Judge right now in the last 3 years. Like, that's insane. His stats have been insane. I'm not, um, doubting him at all. It's just 32, 150 million, $30 AAV. We knew he was going to get a deal, but like Philly's putting a lot of money into this guy with an aging Bryce Harper, an aging JT Muto, if they even get him back. Zach Wheeler's getting older. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. I was kind of surprised Philly brought him back, needless to say.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that at all, that it is a lot of money there, and there's a lot of other things there. Like you said, like Raider Suarez is a free agent. Like, I don't know if I've really heard him linked to Philly at all. This seems like he just kind of been, they're just going to take the draft pick for the qualifying offer that they threw to him. So he's going to be gone. It seems like Real Muto, I would assume they would at least want to bring him back. Obviously, just the clubhouse presence he has, the way he's able to handle his staff is known for being some of the best in baseball back there. Obviously, he's declining, though, but he still can be a good catcher for him. I think Philly kind of wants this approach of running it back, and they really like their team they have, and they believe in them, even though they can maybe if they add a little bit more over the hump. Because we all know that it's not just like baseball's fluky when you get in the playoffs sometimes. Like, just because you had the same team and it's a year farther, I don't think you need to like shake up the entire core and say we need a whole new group in here to not win. I know that's like big. A lot of people will say you need to shake everything up, especially for them when they really haven't done anything in the postseason since they went to the World Series. Like, that was 2022, and they haven't done really shit since then. And so I can see the sense for shakeup like that. But I think Philly has, if they bring those guys back, they have a good enough team to go out there and win the World Series again. Like, we forget how good the Phillies were last year.
Yeah, and the other thing, back to my point about the aging, I purposely didn't say Aaron Nola, who, Aaron Nola, I was checking out all their birthdays on the depth chart, and he's 1993. He's 4 months older than me, and I like refuse to call him old. Just because I saw that real quick. But he's in his 30s now too. So you got Luzardo, Nola, Wheeler, and Sanchez for next year, and that's assuming Ranger Suarez is gone. We don't know if Wheeler's come back, so you're relying on Christopher Sanchez to have another fantastic year. You're relying on Aaron Nola, and then Andrew Painter is your number 3 if Ranger Suarez goes the other way, and Wheeler, he's a total question mark as of right now. It's a lot of money for a DH, Hagen. Here, I'm going to let you talk, though. Let's talk about your doppelganger.
Yeah, so obviously the biggest pitcher contract we had this entire offseason so far. Really, the only like big of those pitcher names that's signed so far is Dylan Cease. Going to the Toronto Blue Jays on a 7-year, $210 million deal. There's some deferrals in there. I believe the present day value went down to around $186 million, but still, he's going to get his bag from that. I thought it was great for Toronto to go out there and do that, especially you see a team that me and you were both hated on pretty much the entire year until the postseason, and we started kind of buying them a little bit. But I love when you see a team that comes.
We're hot.
But I love when a team goes to the World Series and they don't like just say, hey, that was enough. We got a revenue from that. We don't need to do anything. We already believe our team's good enough. Let's just retain who we had. They said, no, let's add to that. They said, hey, we almost beat the Dodgers, who's the best team we've seen in years and decades. We almost beat them in the World Series in the extra innings. And they say, let's go out and get Dylan Cease now. They're still in on Bo Bichette too. You add to a rotation. You have Gosman, you have Bieber, you have Cease in there. You Savage still has another year there. So Jose Barrios, Bowden Francis, Eric Lauer. Also just signed another guy we're going to talk about here in a sec too. Like, this is a great signing for Toronto to go out there and sign him. I know everyone's going to say Dylan Cease is he's a 4 ERA guy and he can be very fluky. Yes, I get that. But in this day and age of baseball, like, just look at a guy who got $200 million. Don't look at what his numbers have been. Look at how he's getting paid. And look at like how GMs are viewing Dylan Cease. There are people are GMs on the team, and they're a lot smarter than all of us on Twitter and on podcasts here. They know what they're doing, and there's a reason why Dylan Cease got $200 million from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and I agree with you here on Dylan Cease. I was a big Dylan Cease. I didn't want the Yankees necessarily to go after him. I wanted him to go to a contender, and it just so happened to be the one contender that's in the Yankees division, which pissed me off a little bit. But needless to say, we're now talking a rotation that looks like Kevin Gausman, Shane Bieber, Dylan Cease, Trey is Savage, and then they got options at the back end with between Jose Barrios, Eric Lauer, Bowden Francis. Toronto just added a guy who not only has a career sub 4 ERA, he's a 3.88, as you said, but in the last since 2021, the least amount of innings he's pitched is 165.2. He's been 184, 177, 189, 168. This guy is an iron horse on the mound and a guy who could eat a lot of innings for you. And when you look at guys like Shane Bieber's, like he's getting older on this rotation. He's not going to be able to give as many innings as he probably was 3-4 years ago. And he also, he came back to the end of the year last year from major surgery. So I'm not saying he's done for. Obviously, we saw him pitch, but it's like, Shane Bieber's no spring chicken. And I think bringing in a 29-year-old and Dylan Cease, who's a highly effective pitcher, I think is a great move for Toronto. Hated for everyone else in the American League, but love it for Toronto. The big thing I love about this, Hagen, is these teams who sign a player thinking they did the fans justice or a service by signing one guy. You can't sign one guy and then move on. They went out and they got their guy at the beginning of last year when they extended Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now they're putting their money where their mouth is. And in the famous words of the man, the myth, the legend, YG, scared money don't make no money. They are spending, and it's awesome to see it if you're a Toronto fan, because it's like exactly what you just said. They're using their World Series attempt. They're not just taking the revenue and collecting profits and calling it a day. They're hungry. They want to go win. And I think more teams need to learn by example. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Athletics do something like this in the next coming years. Nick Kurtz is going to get a massive extension. They need to sign guys on top of Nick Kurtz. And it's just a perfect example of this team in the American League can rinse and repeat what Toronto's doing on the western side of the country. And heck, who knows? Maybe the Athletics with all their young guys add some, guys after an extension for Nick Kurtz. And you'll be sitting pretty in the same spot as Toronto right now because their rotation looks great. The lineup looks great, especially if they get Bo Bichette back. And I think Toronto right now is obviously they're going to be a top 3 team in the American League next year. But, if everything goes well. But they look very good and they look scary on paper.
Yeah, they really do. And we've seen this. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone either. Obviously, we've seen them in on pretty much the marquee free agents the last couple of seasons that they want to get these guys. Obviously, the Shohei Ohtani, we all know what happened there. But the Pete Alonso last year they were in on. They're in on all these free agents, on the Aaron Judge. Like, they're in on all of these big guys. They just never landed any of them. And I think Vlad signing him, I think, was such the key to this because they really have a future with Toronto. The people didn't really know if they were going to re-sign Vlad or what they were going to do with Bichette. There was no really long-term players they had there. The farm system really wasn't looking great. So I don't think people really wanted to sign there for 10 years or whatever it was going to be because they didn't know how the future was going to look on this team. The GMs were looking like they were probably going to get fired at the beginning of the year. Their contracts going up and stuff. And then you sign a Vlad Guerrero Jr. back, and then you see people want to come there now. You mix that with an ownership group that is the second largest in baseball behind Steve Cohen. They want to spend their money, and they just came off a phenomenal season, one of the best seasons of franchise history, the best in I don't even know how long. And then you go out and you do this, and then you can go off on the heels of that. You go out there and you sign Cody Ponce, the KBO MVP, to a 3-year, $30 million deal. Take a chance on him, who was one of the really popular names, too, on these lower, middle-end pitchers. Give him $10 million a year. He gives you 150 innings and throws like a 4.5 ERA. That deal's great. He doesn't have to, for $10 million for a starting pitcher in today's age, that's really good money, even if he just gives you a 4.2 to a 4.5 and he gives you 150 innings.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know much about Ponce, but I didn't realize he won the MVP in the KBO last year. That's a notable signing for Toronto. And he could be exactly like you said. He could be a starter. He could be a swingman. That's a great signing for Toronto based off the numbers alone. Let's keep moving. And I'll take this one simply because it's Boston. And as a Yankees fan, I got to talk about it. So Sonny Gray, for those who don't know, is fantastic. He is a very under the radar pickup for Boston. They made a move. Struck a deal with St. Louis. So uh, they gave away a couple prospects. Probably none of them will be as good as Sonny Gray has been or is. So I think Boston won this deal just based off that. Seems like Boston's being really patient with their prospects right now. Like, obviously, the group chat's been popping off all day about like potential for trading Duran and getting some guys, or trading, for Ketel Marte and giving up some guys. Um, it's been all over the place. And Dean, Sam, obviously our resident Boston fans, I think they're really happy about the Sonny Gray signing. And they struck a deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates last week for Johan Oviedo. So this is a 5-player trade. The password, I'm not even going to pronounce his name, but Jahasnin. I said I'm not going to do it, then I tried it. Garcia. He's on Pittsburgh. And it seems like Boston, they got their arms. They got a couple arms. They might go get a third. I'm not really sure. If they definitely need a bat in this free agency. That's what Dean seems to be harping on. They need a big bat. He would love to get Bichette, it sounds like. But Boston's loading up, and they obviously get Roman Anthony back. They're going to have a bunch of their young studs. Boston is a sleeping giant. I have a feeling that Boston in the next 5-6 years is going to really torture, the American League East. So good deals for them. I will say this: the New York Boston rivalry, it's heating up, and that's really what I wanted to hone in on today. Like, you got Chapman saying, quote unquote, he would rather be dead than play for the New York Yankees again. And on top of that, Sonny Gray, he's immediate interview saying he never wanted to go to New York in the first place. And then Brian Cashman, the GM's, commenting on that, saying, that is not true. That Sonny Gray said he wanted out of Oakland. I want to win a world championship. He was communicating that to a bunch of people, that Cashman's saying, and then he wants to be a Yankee. So we have two totally different sides of the story here going on, whether, Sonny Gray's telling the truth or Cashman's telling the truth. I have a feeling I know who's telling the truth, and I don't think he's on my team, on my side, unfortunately. I think this rivalry is going to be getting to that point as intense as it's ever been in the last, 2 decade or so. I don't know. There's obviously some intense battles with these teams in the last 30 years, but it seems like both these rosters are loaded, and it seems like they do not like each other. So love to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love when there's just Red Sox and Yankees people coming out and they're just saying, I don't want to play for this team. I never wanted to play for you. You'd love to see it just because, like, people have already circled the date on the calendar, because I believe they play early on too. I believe it's at Yankee Stadium too. They're going to play really early on. It's going to be very exciting, especially when both teams have some young players come up too. We saw with Cam Schlittler what he did against the Red Sox in the postseason, and him going to Twitter after and talking his shit after the game, which adds another element to that. But just on the signing for Sonny Gray, I thought the trade. I thought it was a great trade for the Red Sox here. I know the big complaint here is the money from fans, paying them as much money as you are. They're saying, just a lot of money for Sonny Gray. You're the Boston Red Sox, man. You shouldn't be complaining about money. I mean, your ownership owns about 6 sports teams. They're getting new soccer players all the time. They're doing this. They can afford to pay Sonny Gray that money for a year. You don't have to pay him for 3 years like any other pitcher you go out there and get. So I like that aspect of it. I think a lot of people look at Sonny Gray and they just say he sucks. They just look at and say he gave you a 4.2 last year. Well, he still gives you 180 innings every single year. People forget that he's 2 years removed from being second in the Cy Young, behind Garrett Cole, who at the time was the sure doubt best pitcher in the world. He went into 2024 as the best pitcher in the world, and Sonny Gray just was second behind him in Cy Young voting. So I think people have just written Sonny Gray off like crazy. Obviously, the Red Sox are going to tinker with that fastball usage a little bit. They're going to obviously move that down. I think everyone would think that. I think Boston fans feel really comfortable about Sonny Gray. I don't even think you have to think about him as like a 2 in your rotation. I just think about him as a guy that's going to start a playoff game for you. And I want Sonny Gray on the mound for my team if I'm going to be in a playoff scenario. You got the mute button on. You got the mute button on, Brett.
I hit the space bar. Did not mean to do that. No, we can keep going. I think that's well said. Well said. Um, Take me through this Orioles signing. So they signed two players. Walk me through this, Hagen.
Yes, they've made two little bullpen acquisitions, which have been pretty nice for them so far. Obviously, the one today that was really under the radar about 30 minutes before he hopped on. Gregory Soto, left-handed pitcher from the Mets and the Orioles last year, bringing him back there. Oh, sorry, Pittsburgh was going there. Sorry, excuse me here, Baltimore. Got confused with the Gregory Soto's old team there, but Ryan Helsley, yeah, Ryan Helsley, another Met, going over there to Baltimore. I really like this deal for them. I really liked it because I think Ryan Helsley is a pitcher that he went to the Mets and had that like 7.8 ERA, whatever it was. I think a lot of people just looked at him and said he sucks now, and I think that we saw from his market too. There was a lot of teams interested in on him. That we saw that teams don't believe that's what he was. He obviously was struggling with the pitch tipping issue. He was there, even though he had a 7.8 ERA. The expected ERA, the FIP was a lot better than that suggested. I know it was still around a 4 or 5 cents, but that's way better. That's 2 or 3 runs more better than what it was before. So I think this is a great get for them too, obviously, because it was uncertain with what you had in the back end right now, your bullpen with Felix Bautista. Obviously, him being injured, so injury prone the last couple of years, you needed a for sure lockdown guy there at the back end. So I really like that deal for him.
Yeah. I think that the Orioles are, I hope that they sign more than Helsley. They obviously need some starters. And if the expectations that Helsley is going to become a starter, I know that discussion was brought up. I don't think that's what you should be doing with Ryan Helsley, like a guy who's throwing 105 miles an hour, however hard Helsley throws it. That just sounds to me like a ticking time bomb that his arm's going to fall off his shoulder if he tries to start as an MLB starter here. But I think Helsley's nasty, and I don't. I know you have a specific thought on him because he came to the Mets for a little bit at the deadline. But before that, he was disgusting. So um, I think this is good for Baltimore. And once again, on this podcast, bad for the Yankees. And seems to be the ringing theme of this episode. It seems like New York's not signing anyone, and the American League East is bolstering all their, rosters right now. I do want to walk through this trade here. So, jumping ship from uh, that, let's stop talking about the American League East. Let's talk about the American League West because Seattle and Washington, they struck a deal, and this is a super intriguing one. The reason why it's intriguing is because the Mariners, they sent their top catching prospect, and he's also a top 100 prospect. I forgot what number overall, but Harry Ford, he's a catcher. He's going to Washington in exchange for Jose Ferrer, a reliever out of Washington. And I love this deal for Washington because I think Washington I love this deal for both teams, actually, not to sound like too overly optimistic. Like the Mariners don't need a catcher. They have Cal Raleigh. He's the best catcher in baseball. And he'll be there for at least I forgot how long his deal is, but he's signed. So they extended him, I think, was it before last season they extended him or was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, before last season, they got him signed till 2030 with a vesting option in 2031.
There you go. You got him for 5 years, possibly 6. The Nationals suck. And I'm sorry, Washington fans. I know whenever anyone is talking Washington baseball right now, you're either mentioning James Wood, you're mentioning when is Dylan Cruz going to make is he going to make this team? Is he going to be, a bust? And then people talk about CJ Abrams. And half the time when we're talking about the talented CJ Abrams, we're talking about his gambling and misbehaving, not necessarily good things. Or staying out of the casino too. What was it? CJ Abrams and who was at the casino too late? It was
I
another
believe it was just Abrams, but yeah, it was out late at the casino on a game night.
Okay, yeah. So like it's not good in Washington right now. And we know this team, they sold out, they went out and they won a World Series, and then no more Scherzer, no more Juan Soto, no more Bryce Harper. Like they've gotten rid of some and obviously Harper was not there for the World Series. Just so if anyone wants to be like, he wasn't there. I know. Uh, they've gotten rid of superstar, perennial players in the last few years that they don't have anymore. And they went in on prospects. And this is what happens if you don't hit on your prospects a lot of the time. And if you look at the Washington rotation right now, Mackenzie Gore, I believe, is like the most talked about tradable piece right now, or one of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? And then
Yeah.
the rest of the rotation: Jake Irvin, Cade Cavalli, Brad Lord, Andrew Alvarez. That's the rotation right now, Hagen. That's horrible. That is not like, I'm not saying like individually these guys are good or bad. I'm saying the rotation as a whole. You have no clear cut one without Mackenzie Gore. You have no clear cut anything. I don't even know how the identity of this rotation. Like, hopefully we get outs. Like that's what that rotation would be. Like, it's, I don't know. It's bad. And I think that their lineup is bad. I think James Wood is who you build around. You try to get him extend. I don't know if he signed a deal, but adding Harry Ford now to the mix, if Harry Ford pans out, you kind of got 2-3 positions in the lineup now secured. And the positive side of this, if with Wood, if Abrams is talented, he just needs to put it all together and gain a little maturity here. If Harry Ford works out and Dylan Cruz works out, you got 2 outfielders, a catcher, and a shortstop who are all under the age of 26. So a lot of work to do, but there is light at the end of the tunnel if this trade hits for Washington.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. And I think it's just the right thing, like you said, where the Nationals they're just not a good team right now. And obviously under a new regime, they want to probably bring their guys in there, build the roster from get their roster in there, not the one that was given to them. And that's why I think you're hearing a lot of all these Washington trade rumors of guys that are probably going to get traded here, is because they know they're not going to compete for anything. I just looked the over under for next year for them. It's set at 68.5, and they're not going to be out here signing any big names, anything like that. So it's going to be pretty close to that. I can't see it being over 70.5 by the end of the offseason there. So I like that for them. Get a guy in Harry Ford who had a big bounce back year from 2024, that he was lost a little bit of his prospect hype a little bit, you could say. And then he had a bounce back last year. So I like that for them. On the Mariners side, obviously you're getting back Jose Ferrer, who can be a high leverage guy for you right away. He's a lefty that can throw 100 miles an hour. He sits at 98. Who doesn't like that? Obviously, he has a great sinker. It does a little bit of changeup. Occasionally, will wrinkle in a slider there in a little bit, but he has some great stuff there, and he can be slide in for a high leverage guy there. You have him for 4 years of team control too, which is nice. My only issue with the Mariners side of this is I felt like you probably could have gotten more for Harry Ford. I know maybe this is the guy they really want in their idea, and he turns into a great setup man for them, and they don't really care about that. But I just thought you could have probably got more with him. I thought that for how often you've heard Harry Ford in trade talks for like 2 years now, I just didn't really think it would be for a setup guy. I don't know. I still like Jose Ferrer for him. I just didn't really think that it would be Harry Ford the deal.
Yeah. Let's keep going. So you put this tidbit in here about the Reds.
Yeah, so Emilio Pagan, who was the closer for Cincinnati last year, he just agreed to a 2-year contract to go back with the team as the closer in 2026. That's an absolutely great get for him. Emilio Pagan, you look at his Baseball Savant page, I feel like a lot of people aren't very familiar with Emilio Pagan and what he's able to do. There is so much red on his Baseball Savant page. Like, you're going to be surprised if you go look at that. He was one of the most underrated closers in baseball last year, in my opinion. Obviously, 2.88 ERA in 68 innings. The sub-1 whip. It was incredible. The only thing he really struggled with was getting ground balls, but for what he does, I don't think he really cared too much about that. I know, yes, you're going to say it's Great American Ballpark and you don't want the ball to be in the air that much. That's probably the only thing I can see against that, but he's striking the world out there. He's not walking too many guys either. He's been pretty great too. He obviously had 98th percentile expected batting average, 183 last year. It was a great signing for the Cincinnati Reds. I think one of the most underrated reliever signings that's happened so far this offseason.
Well said. I think Cincinnati, obviously they needed this, but at the same time, like, it's just kind of like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, just like, it's tasteless because, and when I say that, maybe I'm not using that word right here, but I mean, like this team was looking at Kyle Schwarber like a week ago, like, oh, we might get the hometown kid to come, and now it's like your first deal is Emilio Pagan. Like Cincinnati has been flirting with, we have young, movable assets for the last 4 or 5 years, I feel, and like solid prospects. And I'm talking about everyone not named Ellie De La Cruz. And then they got Ellie. I think the Reds need to figure it out and get a big bat in this lineup or two. Like I like relievers are a dime a dozen. You could sign guys in the middle of the year that could turn it up for an inning or two. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Pagan, and congratulations to him because he was great in 2025. I just think that for the Reds, like if I'm a Reds fan, this is just like it's like one of those signings. Like we need to find a bigger fish is what I'm getting at. But we'll keep going. Oh, sorry.
And real quick too, just when you brought up that Schwarber point and them not really doing any sexy moves by any, if you want to put it that way, I got a bone to pick with Cincinnati Reds too because they were in on Kyle Schwarber. They gave him a very good deal. I believe it was $140 million they were at in Kyle Schwarber. So they showed the world that they can spend that money on a big time free agent. And then once they miss out on him, they come out and they say that we're not going to sign any big time free agents. We're going to operate how we were normally going to do that. And I believe that was $5 to $10 million signings they said they were going to work with there. So you show the world that you can afford a Kyle Schwarber and you'll feel fine with it going after a guy like that. And then when he's gone, you say, no, screw everyone else to the top guys. We made the playoffs last year and we have a very young team. No, we're not really going to improve too much in that. We're just going to do marginal moves to improve. I just think that's so stupid that you showed your fans you can spend that money and it would not hurt you that much. And then once you miss out on the big time guy, Schwarber, just because he's the hometown guy, you're going to say, no, we're not going to do that anymore. I just think that's so stupid. And I think this is the reason why we have an issue in Major League Baseball is because owners are not willing to spend their money.
Yeah. Like here in Indiana, I just have a lot of Reds fans that this is their closest team. This is the team they grew up with. So it's really disheartening to see my friends and, the community here, like just so down on the Reds who are just like they are a historical franchise. They have won titles. They have had Hall of Famers. They've had the whole history around Pete Rose and the aura of Pete Rose in that, organization. I just think that this is a team that's had a lot of, settling, I think is a good word, the last 10, 15, 20 years. And I didn't really follow them too much in the Larkin Griffey years, but it just seems like, this was a team, and correct me if I'm wrong, Griffey went from Seattle to Cincinnati, correct?
Correct.
And I'm guessing that was done by free agency, or was that a trade? Do you remember?
I'm too young to remember in the moment, but I believe it was a free agency thing. I don't remember hearing anything about a trade for him over there.
So okay, it was a trade. So I get it, like, but Griffey was there in Seattle for I meant in Cincinnati for how many years? He was there for, from year 2000 when he was 30 years old. He stayed up until 2008. So he was there 8 years. Ken Griffey Jr. They got a superstar like Ken Griffey Jr. I know he wasn't in his prime anymore. They got him to stay for 8 years. This is a team that can't get anyone to stay right now or anyone to sign. Yeah, I know he was traded. That's why I was bringing that up. But, yeah, I don't know. We can move on. Cincinnati needs to become more appealing. And then finally, you added this right before the show. Did you already talk about Soto on the signing?
Well, that's what I got mixed up on a little bit earlier. But he went over there. Okay. Yeah, I got it mixed up a little bit right before. But he signed like 30 minutes before we hopped on here, so I added it on there. Just because I thought it was just cool to see the Pittsburghs making a move, signing Gregory Soto to a 1-year, $7.75 million deal. Obviously, a left-handed reliever. He has some good stuff. He can be very good. He can be very bad too. But I like Pittsburgh taking a shot and showing that they're going to sign guys this offseason, help improve their team, especially with the bullpen that was atrocious, to put it lightly, with them. And they needed any help they could really get there. So shout out to Pittsburgh for making the move out there, and good for Gregory Soto.
Absolutely. I love it for Pittsburgh. It's not what they need. Like, obviously, they need bullpen help, but they need hitting. They need hitting, and like, I want Paul Skeens to be a lifetime Pirate. I don't want. I like the same organization throughout the entire career stuff. I know that's not always the case, just because this is a profession and guys are trying to get paid. But for Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh fans, they deserve to have a guy like Paul Skeens rostered and paid and happy in Pittsburgh. And they have all the resources capable to make that happen. It's just whether they will or not. How long will they play chicken with Paul Skeens for? So, that being said, that's been the bigger news and transactions this week. We obviously tomorrow, I believe tomorrow's the last day of winter meetings. We're recording this Tuesday, December 9th, right around 10:30 Eastern. So there might be some guys who sign later tonight that we hear about later, but that's it for news and notes. Let's move to some of the other stuff going on. And, if you can see right over my shoulder, all these baseballs, I bring them up a lot. They're all signed by Hall of Famers, and I need to add a new one because Jeff Kent is heading to Cooperstown. So, Hagen, what are your thoughts on Jeff Kent, who I didn't know this? He's the all-time home run leader for the second base position. He earns this through a ballot with the Contemporary Era ballot. It's a group of, I believe it's 12 folks that vote on this, and I believe you need, what do you need, 8 or 9 votes in order to get in out of the 12?
I believe you need to get 75% of them.
Okay. So Jeff Kent, he's in. Barry Bonds, he's out. He's not in the Hall, and I don't think he's able. Was it 10 years he's got to wait now?
I believe it was 2031. They said he has to wait till
2031. Okay. Let's focus on Jeff Kent. That's on me for bringing up both. Do you think Jeff Kent should be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I'm not a big Hall of Fame guy where looking at guys and being like, looking at his numbers compared to people the rest. I'm not that deep on it to know exactly what the thresholds are, but I think looking at the overall player, like when I look at it, I think that's a Hall of Famer, especially too, because you have to look at just overall, like historically, I feel like second base is just a weak position. And I know a lot of people nowadays just want to look at the WAR and just say, oh yeah, he has a good WAR. No, he doesn't. This. You got to factor in that WAR takes into account positional adjustment. So like a second base is not going to accumulate WAR like a shortstop. Like he can put up the same exact numbers, put up the same defensive, offensive numbers, but just because his position, he's not going to have as high as WAR as a shortstop. So I think you can't just look at the WAR thing. I think you just got to look at a lot of his traditional stats. Obviously, I'm a guy who just normally looks at just more your advanced metric stuff like that. But I mean, you look at a guy who played 17 years, and over the course of his career, he combined for a 123 OPS plus, 23% above league average in his career, 2,400 hits, 55.5 WAR. I know the defense struggled from what I've heard about him, but this is a great hitter. I mean, he obviously won the MVP too. He had some great years with the Giants, so he had the peak there too. That was great. I value peak too when I look at Hall of Famers. So I think this was the right call.
I really messed up. I talk about this often with you, so you know what I'm talking about. But there's a game Dean and we used to play called MLB Showdown. For any like baseball people who are like 8 to 12 years old back in like 2000, 2001. That was the time to get into MLB Showdown. It was an awesome card game. And I remember 2001, Jeff Kent on the Giants. There's a bright orange shiny card. I have it right here, and I could find it, but I'd rather bring it out before. That card was freaking sick. And it was like, anytime you played anyone, like there was supposed to be a point system, like how many points each card's worth, and you can only like budget for so many points on a team. When you're young and dumb, you just play all your shiny card, all your holographic cards. And Jeff Kent, if anyone made their lineup as good as possible, Jeff Kent was always the card used at second base. He was a dog. That being said, I know people aren't happy about it. And like I was at the memorabilia shop today. I texted you guys a photo that I picked up. The one thing I will say for Jeff Kent, if you lead your position all time in home runs, regardless of any other stat, regardless of any other thing, like there's only 8 positions on a baseball field. You got the 4 infield, you got catcher, and you got 3 outfield. There's 8 positions total in the history of our game, unless you count TH 9 for anyone who's an ass. But uh Jeff Kent is the leader in second base all time in home runs. So, definition of itself, no one who has played that position has more home runs than Jeff Kent. I think that alone is good enough to get him in. Am I thrilled about it? No, because I like to keep a high standard for the Hall of Fame, like the highest of standards. But at the same time, I have nothing against Jeff Kent. I loved his card. I didn't follow him too much, but the guy was a hitter. The guy was a excellent hitter, and congratulations to him. I'm happy for him. That's awesome. Just now I need to buy another autograph.
Yeah, I think it shows too. Just kind of reminded me when I heard he was in the Hall of Fame. I'm so young that like I was not familiar with Jeff Kent at all. Like I did not know that he played for my own team, the Mets, for 5 years until I saw the post online that the Mets posted. Like I didn't know he played for the Mets. I never knew he won an MVP. I didn't know he was like the guy that was like there with Bonds. It was just like a whole thing to me where I was kind of like, there was a lot. Just it was kind of fun for me to go out there and look and then kind of learn a lot about Jeff Kent because I've never looked into him before in my life.
Yeah, I've never looked into his career stats either. And I noticed that just like 2 minutes ago, actually. So that's a great point. Like the dude won an MVP. Like it wasn't like he won MVP of the league at one point. Like he was the best player in baseball at one point, and he's the leader for his position in career home runs. So he obviously had a peak. Like anyone does, he had a peak. It was excellent. It was good enough to get him in the Hall. It just the number of All Stars, I get it. And did the peak last as long as people would have liked to seen? Probably not. But doesn't matter. He's in. So, wanted to talk about a couple more things. So, Ohtani announces that he is going to play for Japan in 2026 for the World Baseball Classic. He's seeking a title repeat. Actually, oh shit, dude, I skipped Bonds. Did you want to talk about Bonds a little bit about your personal thoughts, or I can go first? I can go.
Yeah, we can talk about Bonds too, because I was about to say too with Jeff Kent, where you said the MVP that he won there and like how he's a dog. He won it in Bonds' reign. Like it wasn't just he won an MVP, he won it the time that Bonds was playing. Jeff Kent won the National League MVP in 2000. Barry Bonds won the next 4. He outplayed Barry Bonds for an MVP. You know how crazy that is?
That's because we talk about like I'm all for Bonds being in the Hall of Fame. I didn't even know, which I know Dean's gonna listen. If Dean listens to this, he's like, you didn't know that Bonds has never not been like I didn't know Bonds actually has never failed a drug test. I did not know that. Obviously, there's a lot of hearsay, a lot of other speculation, a lot of other things going on about the PEDs and all that. Like, I'm not the person investigating and doing that. As far as I'm concerned, you've never failed the test. There's no paper trail of saying that you actually like took steroids. I just think right now, like, what's the expression? Ask for forgiveness later. Like, I think you put them in, and if they do find more as they investigate whatever, take them out. It's not like people, you're able to do that, right? And Bonds statistically is arguably the best hitter we've ever seen. So I was a little bummed out for Barry Bonds for sure.
Yeah, the Bonds thing's complicated for me because obviously, like, we have this debate almost every single day. Will, who I know, is watching. We talk about the Bonds thing, and we're not a fan of these old head 1920s guys being considered the GOATs and all this. It's Babe Ruth. Like, it's Babe Ruth and Shohei Ohtani, the best players of all time. And it's kind of weird to be like, the best player in all time is not going to be in the Hall of Fame. But the whole steroids thing, I know he technically didn't get like drug tested and fail it for being on roids, but like we all know Barry Bonds took steroids there. Yeah, like as we were talking about that earlier. Yeah, I know Will's watching this right now. He's probably got some words for that too.
Babe had
it. But yeah, it's just a weird thing with the Bonds thing for me. It just I know he technically didn't fail a drug test at all, but we all knew he took steroids and stuff. So I can see the point of like you want to keep it a sacred thing, the Hall of Fame. So I can see the aspect of it, but it's also like the guy was so good, and like Major League Baseball was almost promoting these guys to do steroids because they weren't really like, I guess letting them is the right way to put it, not promoting, is it? but they were just letting these guys do it because they knew at the time baseball they needed those guys to help revive baseball and make it fun again. You ask anyone who's over the age of 30 the best era of baseball is, and they say it was the steroid era. Everyone always talks about how fun of baseball it is. That's like the era I miss the most, and I wish I could have watched. But I think another factor too, the reason why I don't think he'll ever get in, is the fact that there's like it's writers and stuff a lot of the time that were voting for him. And Barry Bonds is known for just being a complete asshole to the media in his days, and nobody liked him, and he didn't like them either. So I think yesterday made me kind of realize too. I just don't think Barry Bonds is ever going to get in, which it kind of sucks.
Dean wrote a couple pieces about Barry Bonds, and he wrote them last year. Was like preparing for this week a year ago. I think he said it well. Like, one thing to take note of, like the writers and the old heads, they're kind of like Hall of Famers. They are dying out, and it's a younger, group of people who want to see Barry Bonds get in. I'm not saying that guarantees Barry Bonds gets in, because there's going to be people like Dean, anyone associated with cheating ever, Dean's against, which I love that. Like, this is my line. You cross my line, you're not in. And I think that as purists, like, there will be baseball purists, and I think that people will keep him out no matter what. I'm very interested to see how this plays out, though, over the next decade. Obviously we'll tell again in 2031 whether he's going to get in or not, but right now it's kind of like baseball's biggest elephant in the room in terms of the Hall of Fame conversation. Is Barry Bonds going to get in? I mentioned the Ohtani piece. The White Sox, they won the draft lottery. They're going to get the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, in baseball, that means a lot less than like basketball or football. So congratulations, Chicago. And then the last thing I want to talk about, winter meetings close tomorrow. We have the Rule 5 draft. I'm paying attention. There are a few Yankee arms that are going to be in there. So we'll see what happens with that. Outside of that, Hagen, do you got anything else besides this, winter meetings and World Baseball stuff? World Baseball Classic, I should say.
I mean, just a couple things. Obviously, there was just so many names that said they were playing today. If you just go look at the World Baseball Classic, one of their social medias, I recommend looking at that. They'll have it. Like, there was just all the news right now of winter meetings. There was just so many names slipped between the cracks there. So I recommend go checking out rosters. If you guys are Team USA signed up, like Gunnar Henderson, Bryce Terang. So I think it's fun to go look at those rosters there. On the 40-man draft, I thought it was important today when the Red Sox made the trading away Vaughn Grissom. They cleared a 40-man spot. I think it's notable to say that. So maybe the Red Sox are going to look to add an arm there, add a bullpen arm there at the draft too. And I was like, around the winter meetings too, I think this is such a great time because obviously everyone knows the baseball offseason is just so slow. And it really feels like the winter meetings is the time where it really kicks off and things start getting moving. It's the busiest weekend in the offseason. I just love it too. I just love this time of year where you feel like it. You almost feel like you just know a big signing is going to happen in the next couple of days. Like I'm going to take a shot now, and I think it's going to be a signing tonight. I'm going to take a shot and say there's going to be a big one tonight, whether it's a passing bomb, whether it's anybody who makes the call. I feel like there's going to be something big to happen tonight. It just feels like all the chatter right before it closes.
One of the execs in Orlando is going to get bombed and be like, yeah, sure, take Jarren Duran. Sorry, I'm making fun of Boston here, but no, that's it for me. I agree. I think someone else is going to sign. Remember, thank you for listening. Follow us on social media and grab your merch. Read our articles that we're putting out this week. I'm going to put out, one free agent that each team should sign, including, news on what's gone on recently, just to catch up on first place in the division. And then outside of that, thank you as always. Please subscribe.